Ancient Japan is a complex and multifaceted civilization that has remained a mystery to many over the centuries. Many view it as underdeveloped, assuming that isolation from other cultures hindered its progress. However, the reality is far more layered and interesting. In this text, we will explore genuine facts about ancient Japan that few are aware of. We aim to lift the veil of myths and uncover the true essence of Japanese culture, its achievements and social structures. The stereotype that Japan was a stagnant and undeveloped civilization has taken root in global perception. However, such a view is often the result of a lack of information and superficial understanding of Japanese culture. In fact, Japan has contributed numerous unique historical and cultural achievements to the world. From theater and art to the samurai codes, all of these elements speak to the high level of development of Japanese society. The history of Japan begins with the earliest clay artifacts found in the archipelago, dating back approximately 16,000 years. These artifacts indicate that early humans, the ancestors of modern Japanese people, inhabited the islands. However, the historical development of Japan as a state began in the 8th century when the capital was moved to Kyoto. This event marked the beginning of the Heian period, a time of cultural flourishing, art and literature. The Japanese language and culture underwent significant changes under the influence of neighboring countries, especially China, allowing the Japanese to create a unique approach to culture that opened up new horizons. The Yayoi period, 300 BCE, 300 CE, marked the beginning of an agrarian culture on the Japanese islands, during which the inhabitants began practicing agriculture and rice production. This era was characterized by an increase in settlements and the emergence of the first social hierarchies. Following this was the Heian period, 794–1185, when Kyoto became the cultural center of Japan. This was the birthplace of high culture, where literature, art, and philosophy reached their zenith. This period is also known for its court intrigues and cultural achievements, such as the creation of renowned Japanese poetry and the novel The Tale of Genji. After the Heian period came the Kamakura period, 1185–1333, marked by military rule of the samurai and the growth of their influence on society. New codes of conduct and military discipline emerged during this time, which were later formalized in Bushido, the samurai philosophy emphasizing values such as honor, loyalty, and courage. This moral framework became the foundation of the Japanese national spirit and continues to influence societal norms today. The next stage was the Edo period, 1603–1868, when Japan entered an era of isolation and internal stability. This time was characterized by economic growth, the development of trade, and a cultural explosion. New forms of art, such as kabuki theater and ukiyo-e woodblock prints, emerged during Edo, highlighting the rich cultural legacy of this era. The influence of Buddhism and Shinto on Japanese culture created a unique religious synthesis that remains significant in the lives of the Japanese people. Buddhism, which arrived from China, introduced new perspectives on life and death, while Shinto, rooted in ancient beliefs, remains an important part of Japanese identity. This religious landscape not only enriched the spiritual life of the Japanese, but also influenced art, poetry, and architecture. Moreover, ancient Japan is renowned for its temples, gardens, and distinctive painting styles. Temples like the famous Golden Pavilion in Kyoto symbolize Buddhist architecture and culture. Japanese gardens, with their harmony and minimalism, reflect the philosophy of Zen Buddhism and serve as places for meditation and self-reflection. The painting of that time also emphasized attention to natural beauty and philosophical concepts, making it an essential part of Japan's cultural identity. The social structure of Japanese society was built on a class system where samurai, farmers, artisans, and merchants held specific roles and responsibilities. Samurai, as warriors and protectors, enjoyed high status and were associated with ideals of honor and loyalty. Farmers provided food for the country, while artisans and merchants contributed to economic development. These social relationships defined people's lives and shaped an extensive cultural tradition passed down through generations. One of the most significant phenomena in Japanese history is the period of self-isolation, known as sakoku. This period lasted more than 200 years and resulted from the government's desire, particularly the Tokugawa shogunate, to control foreign influence and preserve traditional culture. Japan completely closed its doors to the outside world, except for a few strictly regulated trading posts. Throughout the 16th century, Japan faced growing pressure from European colonial powers, especially the Spanish and Portuguese, as well as the increasing number of Christian missions. Fears arose among authorities that foreign influence could undermine the traditional way of life and social structures. Consequently, the Tokugawa shogunate issued a series of decrees aimed at enforcing strict control over foreign trade and religious practices. Christianity was banned, and Christians faced persecution. This led to religious oppressions and isolation from the rest of the world. While Japan's self-isolation characterized this period, it also became a time of genuine cultural flourishing. Limiting external influences allowed the Japanese to focus on developing unique forms of art and literature, which later influenced national identity. Among the most prominent expressions of cultural life during this time was No theater, which combined elements of music, poetry, and dance. No performers donned exquisite costumes and intricate masks, representing characters that embodied both human emotions and nature. Simultaneously, the more democratic kabuki theater gained popularity with a broader audience. Its stunning costumes, vivid decorations, and emotional performances touched upon social issues and human relationships, allowing viewers to gain a deeper understanding of the world they lived in. In addition to theater, visual culture also experienced significant growth. Ukiyo-e prints emerged as a hallmark of Japanese artistic style, showcasing the beauty of nature and everyday life. Artists like Hokusai and Hiroshige created works that continue to inspire awe even today. Their prints, depicting majestic landscapes and scenes from daily life, symbolized the harmony between humans and nature. Literature also experienced a renaissance of sorts. Forms of poetry such as haiku reached new heights of popularity. Poets sought to convey the depth of their feelings and observations about nature through concise and elegant verses, where each symbol held meaning. This led to the creation of a unique literary style that enriched Japan's cultural life during that period. Thus, despite its isolation, Japanese culture experienced a genuine surge, enriching itself with new forms of self-expression and deepening the connection between humans and nature, as well as society. This period laid the foundation for the subsequent development of Japanese culture, which later attracted global attention following the country's opening in the mid-19th century. While isolation led to some technological lag, it also allowed Japan to maintain internal harmony and cultivate a unique culture. The Sakoku period became the basis for forming Japanese identity, manifesting in the arts, philosophy, and social structure. Restrictions on external influences fostered a deepening of traditional practices and customs. And although Japan remained isolated, its culture continued to develop independently. In the mid-19th century, the world witnessed significant changes as Japan, influenced by international politics, began to open up to the outside world. In 1853, Admiral Matthew Perry from the United States arrived in Tokyo Bay with a fleet, demanding that Japan end its isolationist policies. Perry proposed that Japan sign a treaty of peace and friendship, which catalyzed a re-evaluation of its internal and external policies. Despite initial resistance, Japan gradually accepted these demands. In 1854, a treaty was signed with the United States, opening 2 ports for American trade, and in the following years, similar agreements were made with other Western powers. This process continued with the onset of the Meiji Restoration in 1868, when Emperor Meiji regained authority, thus ending the Tokugawa shogunate. This pivotal moment marked the transition from a feudal system to a modern state structure. The government began actively adopting Western technology and administrative practices to accelerate the country's industrialization and modernization. During these changes, Japan carved a path toward industrialization, creating a new economic foundation. The focus was placed on developing railroads, production, and trade. Japanese society began to adapt to a new regime where Western culture exerted increasing influence. The emergence of modern educational institutions and the introduction of Western scientific knowledge enhanced literacy and facilitated cultural exchange. Despite the rapid Western influence, Japan managed to preserve its unique cultural heritage. The Japanese adapted many Western ideas, blending them with their traditions to create a unique cultural synthesis. With Japan's opening, the country became involved in international affairs, leading to its participation in various conflicts and alliances, including the First Sino-Japanese War, 1894-1895, and the Russo-Japanese War, 1904-1905. These events solidified Japan's position as a world power and demonstrated its ability to tackle the challenges of modern times. As modernization began in Japan in the late 19th century, society underwent significant changes. New educational systems, based on Western models, raised the literacy rate and transformed people's mentality. Scientific advancements and technological progress opened access to new knowledge, fostering growth in fields such as medicine, engineering, and technology. This period also marked a flourishing time for Japanese art and literature. Artists began to explore new styles, combining traditional techniques with Western influences. One of the most notable representatives of this era was artist Takehara Shunso, who incorporated Impressionist elements into his works. In literature, a new literary movement emerged, known as New Literature, Shinbungaku, where writers like Natsume Soseki inscribed Western literary forms into a Japanese context. Their works explored the internal conflicts of individuals in a rapidly changing society, delving into themes of identity, feelings of solitude, and cultural confrontation. Despite modernization, traditional culture continued to play an essential role in the lives of the Japanese people. Arts such as the tea ceremony, ikebana, flower arrangement, and calligraphy retained their significance as symbols of the Japanese cultural heritage. These practices not only served as a means of transmitting traditions, but also offered a way to find inner peace amid a rapidly changing external environment. Politically, modernization also coincided with the emergence of various social and political movements. People began to demand rights and democracy, ultimately leading to the establishment of a constitutional government in 1889. This was an important step toward creating a modern nation where citizens had a voice in decision-making. As a result of modernization and openness, Japan began actively participating in global cultural exchanges. Japanese arts, such as ceramics, textiles, and design, began attracting attention and respect beyond its borders. The influence of Japan even extended into Western fashion and design, thanks to impressionists like Manet and Van Gogh, who were inspired by Japanese prints. From the late 20th century onward, Japan entered an era of postmodernism, characterized by a diversity of ideas, styles, and forms of self-expression. Japanese culture started to actively borrow elements from other cultures, creating unique hybrid genres that reflect globalization and multimedia trends. Japanese pop culture, including anime, manga, and video games, gained popularity worldwide, shaping a new global perspective on Japan. Anime and manga have become iconic symbols of Japanese culture in the modern world. Since the early 1980s, anime, both as an artistic and entertainment genre, has begun to gain popularity, both within the country and beyond its borders. Works by directors such as Hayao Miyazaki and Satoshi Kon have received acclaim for their depth, emotional richness, and stunning animation. Manga, as a publishing medium, covers a wide range of themes, from everyday life to science fiction, reaching audiences across various age groups. The process of modernization served as a true catalyst for change in Japanese society, facilitating industrialization and rapid economic growth. This allowed the country to occupy a leading position in the global community, while preserving its traditions and adapting them to new conditions. A vivid example of this synthesis can be seen in the culture of anime and manga, as well as street fashion, which have become symbols of the unique interplay between the traditional and the modern in Japanese society. Additionally, Japan actively participates in globalization, utilizing its cultural flexibility to integrate into the global space. This cultural exchange not only enriched Japanese arts, but also contributed to their recognition and significance on the international stage. An essential aspect of contemporary Japanese society has been the changes in social structures. The emergence of a new generation, actively advocating for rights and social reforms, demonstrates that traditional values can coexist harmoniously with contemporary demands. The youth brings fresh ideas and approaches, helping the country to move forward. Looking to the future, Japan faces new challenges, such as an aging population and climate change. Nevertheless, its ability to adapt and incorporate innovations into both public and cultural life reinforces its vital role on the global stage. Thus, Japanese culture is not a static heritage. It represents a living and dynamic organism that continues to evolve. It offers a rich and diverse experience for both its citizens and the entire world. This serves as an inspiration for future generations, demonstrating that tradition and modernization can not only coexist, but enrich one another, creating a unique cultural landscape. Thank you for watching our channel. Subscribe so you won't miss new videos.